Well, let's get more insight into Nigeria and what's at stake next month. For that, we turn to Emira Woods, an associate fellow at the Institute for Policy Studies. She spoke to my colleague, Mike Walter.
Well, let me ask, first of all, I think in the West, this election's framed as, who's going to tackle Boko Haram? But inside Nigeria, the dynamics are much more different. It's the economy in Nigeria, isn't it?
It is absolutely the economy in Nigeria, as it is all around the world. It is in Nigeria a question of the haves and the have-nots, the 1% versus the 99%. The majority of people in an oil-rich country, and it's 131 million people in an oil-rich country, are really concerned. Majority of people living on less than $1 a day, concerned about how to put food on the table to feed their children, what schools they're going to send their children to, healthcare, jobs, housing. Those essential building blocks of healthy societies are not there for the majority of people in the country, right? So ultimately, we have to say, oil companies have dictated for far too long the terms in Nigeria. The international community has had its hand in trying to dictate to Nigeria. It will be the people of Nigeria that must ultimately determine the future of their country.
You feel as though the United States has had some missteps in dealing with Nigeria, though, that have contributed to some of the problems on the ground there.
Without a doubt, the U.S. has looked to Nigeria as a supplier of oil, period. The U.S. has seen, why is our oil under your soil as almost the determinant of their relationship with Nigeria, as in other parts of the world, Iraq and many other places. So ultimately, big oil in the U.S., in Europe, and elsewhere has called the shots. And that's been part of the problem, because where big oil leads, the military follows. And the U.S. military has played a role now for decades in training and equipping the Nigerian military, looking the other way when the Nigerian military has committed horrendous human rights violations. So how do you turn it around? You begin to listen to people, to the workers, to those who have been rendered invisible, those on the land where the oil resources lie, those whose communities in the northern part of the country have been devastated, have not seen economic development in spite of the tremendous wealth of the country. Those people are clamoring for an economic transformation, and you begin to put in place a transformation that ends a dependence on oil, diversifies the economy, that looks to the incredible dynamic of young people clearly leading the demographic in Nigeria, as in much of Africa. This will begin to diversify an economy, create an economy that meets the needs for all, and turn things around.
One final question. There was a quote I looked up from a citizen in Nigeria who was interviewed about the situation, that the people who come to power, it's instant gratification, try and grab as much money as possible, don't think about the future. And he described Nigeria this way: Nigeria is the country with no tomorrow. Is it the young people that you're pinning your hopes on that will provide this future, this tomorrow? How far is tomorrow in the distance, do you think?
Well, I think it is young people that will be critical in determining the tomorrow and the future generations to come. I think it is young people. We've seen their power since Tunisia, really. We've seen their power, and most recently in Burkina Faso, turning around and really ousting a government not meeting their needs. We've seen their power this past month in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It's young people leading the way. I mean, this is what has changed history. From the days of the civil rights era here in the United States to the anti-apartheid era, there were moments when we thought things were unchangeable. And yet, young people leading the way brought the change that the world demanded. So we have to stay on the right side of history, and we have to remain optimistic.
All right. Thanks so much for your time.
A pleasure. Thank you.